All right, so it's joke time. So hopefully I don't clam up today. You didn't get a laugh out of him. No, I know.
But we're oystering.
Eastern North Carolina is known for its coastlines and for its fresh seafood. But do you know how oysters go from the sea to our table? Well, today we are at an oyster farm tour to find out. It's time for the Specialty Project, and joining us today is Captain Monty of Sea Visions Charters. And what adventure are we getting up to today?
We're going to be heading out on the Newport River to Sandbar Oyster Company.
So what Sandbar Oyster Company is hoping to do is, through this new material that my business partner and I invented, it's a biodegradable hardscape, and it's plant fiber cloths that have cement or other binders infused into them, and then we shape that into different forms, and we use that to create frameworks for oyster reefs.
This was a big sandbar. There was nothing out here. What Dr. Niels, Lindquist, and Hammerhead did was develop a substrate that the oysters could grow on. Well, now if we look around, not only do we see a raised area up here, it's higher in the water column than it had been in the past. When we farm the oysters that are out here on the farm, we are breaking the oysters off of the substrate.
To open up, how many attempts does it take before you're like a pro oyster shucker?
I think it's like anything else, the more practice you have, the better you get at it. So then, we would just cut it away from the shell. That would give you the oyster to eat. You can see that this has been manufactured.
So it's a manufactured home.
Yes, it's a manufactured home. And you can see that it's fibrous here, and then there's some hard substance on the outside, which is essentially the catalyst for the fibers. And the oysters attach to here and grow all over the place. So once the plant fibers are saturated with the hard substrate, then we can form it into anything. And usually they're juvenile oysters, or they're younger oysters when we break them off of the substrate. Mm-hmm. That's why you see the bags out here. The oysters are filtering, so they're constantly depositing things out into the environment. Yep. In fact, if you notice, this particular bottom around here is a little bit more fluffy,
right,
if you will. Then if we go out there on the other side of the boat, you can also see a bit of a color change. So the area out there is more sand. It doesn't have as much nutrients as this does. And this is a result of these oysters filtering all of the nutrients through their bodies. But we've created an oyster reef that cleanses the environment, creates nutrients, creates a habitat for more oysters to grow, a bunch of seagulls, also some egrets and pelicans.
So these are some examples of this material, this biodegradable hardscape that Hammerhead and I invented. This is kind of a very simple one, which you might have seen out on the lease. We call this a tuft. So it's like a three-dimensional pretzel. And oysters will settle all over these strands, a lot of surface area, and then there's space among the strands for the oysters as they're growing to fill into. It's a twine, and we can soak that in a slurry of cement, and we can cut our cloth to different shapes and pass it through the slurry, and then we can wet form that so we can make something like a table. And you saw some of these out on the lease that were covered in oysters, and just the texture of this material is very attractive to oyster larvae when they're settling out and looking for a safe place to grow.
Well, I had an oyster of a time. Make sure to come back to Hello E&C every week to discover new hidden gems that make E&C a destination to be.